Hello and welcome to the Physiology of Endurance Running podcast. I'm Owain. I'm joined by Dan. How's it going, Dan?
Yeah, all right, thanks. Yeah, a bit tired. Probably did a few too many miles last week.
I
192k
was going to say
and
how
some,
how close to 200.
yeah, nearly two. Yeah, I think my fine line is 185k, I think. Because I did like 4 weeks of that back to back. Fine. Then did 192. No, too much. But then like, I did some big sessions as well and double sessions. And yeah, probably just a bit too much running maybe. But you live and learn.
Yeah,
Take it just
yeah,
to your sign, just a sign saying your body's done enough. Back off for a bit, and hopefully I'll be good again, good to go again in a day or two. But
yeah.
yeah, other than that, I'm doing all right.
Good, good.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, yeah, just plodding along really. Yeah, good 2 day training camp on a farm over the weekend. Um, yeah, that
Yeah,
was
interesting holiday destination.
yeah, it was nice. It was with my family. Yeah, it was nice. It was like I don't want to go into too deep a detail about my holiday, but yeah, in basically mid Wales, and yeah, on a farm, like different sleeping areas, but then like a big barn to sort of congregate in, and some of those like did both my runs on back roads, sort of out around like Monmouth, and like absolutely lethal like elevation, like it's just non-stop up and down, um, but really enjoyed it. Yeah, just nice like sort of don't know, when it's just like a slow pace of life for a couple of days, it's quite nice.
Yeah, I like how
Yeah,
you said lethal elevation there, and you know who we're about to talk to, right?
yeah, I know. Well, you've said about 180k, and I've said about lethal elevation. Um, and yeah, I guess that's a good segue, right?
Yeah, I guess it's combined the two.
Yeah. So today we're talking to Tom Evans, who is yeah, world class trail runner. He's 2023 Western States champion. Um, And what else? Marathon des Sables, he's placed really highly. That was sort of his breakout, wasn't it?
Yeah, Marathon
Sort
des
of,
Sables, like really cool story. Like I'm pretty sure I didn't go into it in this podcast because I think I've heard of it so many times, but I'm pretty sure it's along the lines of he's from the military. A mate did Marathon des Sables, did quite well, and Tom's in a bar said, "Right, I'm gonna do better than you," and entered it, and I'm pretty sure he was third from memory. Like I'm even 95% sure he was third. Like definitely podium. Uh, and like the rest is history. Then yeah, Western
yeah.
States, which is I'd probably say the second biggest ultra in the world.
You're going to upset some people with that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like it's got to be Western States or UTMB, isn't it? And
Yeah,
as Western States is older, but I would they're different as well, aren't they? Like it's more runnable. Western States, you're winning it in like 12 hours, aren't you? Whereas you're winning UTMB in 19 hours.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
different races, but in terms of prestige, they're definitely the top two in the world, aren't they? Western
yeah,
States, UTMB, and to go and win that is a massive deal.
yeah, and yeah. So we talked to Tom about his sort of training, how he utilizes sports science, which is sort of the theme of these series, isn't it? But especially for for UTMB, 170 odd k. I don't know how far the course is this year because it slightly changes each year, doesn't it? But 170k, 10,000 meters of climbing, starting through the night as well, which sort of adds its own challenge. It's just such a unique race, and Tom really gets technical. I think that was really interesting. Sort of some of the discussion about breaking down different phases of the race based on the terrain and
Yeah,
training
he's
for
definitely
them.
meticulous in his planning and coping with being at over 2,000 meters of elevation for a lot of the race as well. A lot of challenges there, and you've got to be fit, but you've got to be conditioned. And yeah, you get the impression of Tom, no stone is left unturned. He was very open and honest with an insight into his preparations for this year's UTMB, which is we're into his taper phase now. So I think it's when by the time this comes out, it's going to be a few days until the race.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
really grateful for Tom for giving up some of his time when he's probably got a lot of media obligations and a lot of on his mind as well. Biggest race of his year.
Yeah.
So very grateful to Tom for being so open and honest and just giving up his time as well.
Yeah. And I think also because we probably have a lot more, um, maybe a lot more like UK based like road and sort of club runners. But if you've never watched it, like tune into UTMB. Yeah, like Dan said, this drops a couple of days before UTMB. The coverage isn't amazing. Like considering you're in the middle of the Alps and it's a running race, it's absolutely incredible. Um, the coverage of the race, it's so good, and it makes road races like look badly covered in comparison. So I think, I mean, one of my favorite things with UTMB is you wake up on the Sunday morning, but have a cup of coffee before your Sunday long run, and you just put on UTMB for an hour. And normally the sun's coming up over the Alps, which generally looks amazing. And you see guys like Tom absolutely like ripping it. Normally at that point they're sort of towards the end, well, not the end. They're sort of 2/3 of the way through, and the race is sort of starting to take shape. And it's a really really cool event. If you've never watched it, I'd really highly recommend because it's really really good fun.
Yeah, they do a good job. They do a good job. And I guess the other thing to say about our demographic of listeners, I think a lot of them are marathon runners, and Tom is also very, very accomplished on the flat. He's been to Eurocross a couple of times at least. He's been to World Cross. He's been to World Half Marathon Champs. He's got a half marathon PB of 63:15 when he hasn't actually run that many half marathons, understandably, because it's not his main distance. So very, very impressive. And I guess it goes back to that episode of Chris Jones, who was sort of, he's more concentrating on the shorter races, but even to be competitive in a race that's going to take 19 hours, your fitness, you just needs to be in an exceptional place. You need to be a very good athlete, borderline world-class athlete on the flat to be world-class on the mountains.
Yeah. I mean, I think that comes across, especially when Tom talks about, sort of the physiological, I guess, cap or clamp that he has on his sort of during the race, and you can't do that, or you can't run that fast with that sort of clamp on your output if you're not exceedingly good. Just in general, just you have to be so fit, and then that translates into half marathons and cross country as well as 100 miles in the Alps.
Yeah, definitely inspiring stuff. Yeah.
There's definitely some sort of mind blowing moments during this one. So it's really really good chat with Tom. As always, we're sponsored by Soar. Soar just dropped their new Race Vest, which we both think looks really really cool. Definitely worth checking out. A really cool sort of colorway and design. For some of our trail runners that are maybe tuning in for the first time as well, some of the Soar trail kit is definitely worth checking out. I know at races like UTMB, there's a really, really big list of mandatory gear, and you have to sort of get a bit creative with how you carry, a night's worth of sort of equipment. And I'd say that the Soar kit has been designed by runners with those challenges in mind.
They've been having spoilers of their race pack, haven't they, as well, which they've been teasing us with over the last few weeks. And I'm not sure if that's out now, but we can at least see it, and it does look very nice. And that's all designed to be compatible with the rest of their gear, and like t-shirts that are reinforced in the right places and compatible with the shorts and everything like that. That really is a system rather than just a single piece of kit, which is quite novel, I think.
Yeah, and even the shorts that we've got that we've both run in and really like, they have loops on for carrying poles, where you would see traditionally people would have, like, I guess you'd call it like a scabbard on their back. So you'd have your pack, and then you'd have another thing on sort of your upper body, and you'd have to try like fit your poles in like over your shoulder whilst you're running. But Soar shorts have been designed where you can just attach the poles to your shorts, so it's sort of always there, and you're not an extra thing to buy or to carry. So designed by people that face those challenges that you're facing at a race like UTMB, which is really cool, isn't it?
And just so many pockets.
Yeah.
Because I know you've got your race pack, but having done like trail races, and I've done a couple of 50Ks on the trails, and actually sometimes you just want something that's super accessible, or even if it's just like putting some rubbish back in your pocket to chuck it in at the next bin. you don't want to be faffing around trying to get it into like a compartment somewhere or a zip in the back of yours. I've had that before, like trying to get an extra gel in like my reserve gels, which are like in the back pocket of the pack. You can't reach it, you break your arm, and it's just really annoying. It's energy you don't need to expend, is it?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah,
So yeah, thank you as always, Saw. Yeah, definitely check out that kit because it looks cool and we think it functions really well as well. So yeah, thank you as always. But I guess we'll leave everyone with the interview now.
yeah, go
Um,
and enjoy.
enjoy.
So we're very lucky today to be joined by Tom Evans. I probably doesn't need much of an introduction for most of you out there, but former Army captain, started off with Marathon des Sables, now competing at the spiky end on the World Trail scene, Western States champion, also GB representative over the cross country and at the World Half Marathon Champs a couple of years back. Tom, joining us from Chamonix. How are you doing today?
Dan, Owen, thank you very much for having me. No, doing yeah, doing really well and yeah, absolutely loving life out in the mountains at the moment.
Yeah, so you've got UTMB in just under 2 weeks, is that right?
Yeah, in 10-ish days, I think. Yeah, and I think the bit, and I'm sure we'll get into it, the big difference between I feel if you're about to run a marathon or a half marathon, you know what shape you're in because you can train semi-specifically. Like if you're doing a marathon, you might do 20 miles at marathon pace or something similar broken up, and it will give you a an estimation. And I say it's only if you're running 220, then you kind of know what you're in for. Whereas here, yeah, preparing for a hopefully just under 20-hour race, yeah, it's very difficult to do. Uh, yeah, the equivalent of a 20-mile marathon pace tempo out here, because yeah, that's a bloody long time.
I guess this isn't your first UTMB. So do you have any sort of benchmarks or things that you're basing your training and where your fitness might be off of?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, fitness is fitness. I think that's the using the iceberg analogy, sort of the your aerobic capacity and your muscular strength, your muscular endurance is the what's under the surface, and then I see the tip of the iceberg stuff is the specificity. It's the big mountains, it's the long climbs, it's the hiking using poles, it's the steep, slow but controlled and flowy downhills. And yeah, and I think from a physical perspective, I'm in like my on a purely data wise, my numbers are in the best place that they've ever been. Um, and I think from sort of a specificity standpoint as well, very similar. Yeah, I think I feel really good. I think sort of my big thing, having raced well here and also raced badly here, is it's very easy to go too hard at the beginning because it doesn't feel fast. And I almost think my strength is definitely my relative speed. My ability is to be able to 5 minute pace or 6 minute pace all day. And at the beginning here, the first 10K is rolling in pretty flat. It's very easy for me I could go through that 10K in 35 minutes, but then blow my back doors off 7, 8 hours later. So it's very, it's very easy for me to go too fast at the beginning. So yeah, I will definitely be dialing things back. But you see, yeah, I think that's sort of the key lesson has been like, let the race come to you and be patient. And even more so, people always talk about being patient in races. Like, take Liverpool cross country, people say, oh, you've got to be patient. But now you can't really be patient because it's so sharp at the sharp end that if you give a 20-second gap, you're not making that back. Whereas here, you can give a 20-minute gap, a 30-minute gap, and it may or may not come back. But yeah, if you make up 20 minutes, similar to the marathon, if you try a negative split, but you're running at your limit in the first half, there's no way you're negative splitting, and it's very easy to make up time when people are yeah hemorrhaging time. So yeah, go out steady, be patient, and yeah, let the race come to you, I guess is my yeah lessons learned from previous editions.
I mean, I'm guessing from someone who's never raced for more than 3 hours, I imagine it's like a marathon but amplified. But if you go out too hard fast, you're obviously going to really pay for that on a completely different scale to that in a marathon. Like you blow up in a marathon, you lose 10 minutes. You blow up in UTMB, you're probably not finishing.
Correct. I think I should describe it like it's like a slow puncture on a bike. Your tire is gonna blow at some point. You might get over the line before it blows if you're lucky, but if you hit if you hit LT2 at your second lactate threshold at any point during the race, you're not finishing. And it's very easy at the beginning of a race when you feel fresh. Like anyone can get to, yeah, I could go get to LT2 running up these climbs almost immediately. And yeah, within a minute, I could be at 3.5 millimoles of lactate, and I can get there fairly easily. But if you do that in the race, that's you might as well sit down and call a taxi because yeah, there's no way that you're getting round. So yeah, it's and when you blow up, you really blow up, and then yeah, everything down to sort of a fueling level, and just yeah, if you go too hard and you turn to acidic in your body, you're not taking on any fuel, and any fuel you do take on, you're not going to absorb. So you've then, no matter how much fueling you think you're doing, you're not using anything, and it's just going to sit in your stomach, and yeah, you're in for a fairly miserable day.
So
Do
how are you gauging intensity during the race? So how you're saying about not going out too hard. How are you doing that? How are you making that decision of whether this is sustainable or if actually I need to peg it back a bit?
So I guess two different ways. I'm a big believer, and I have a love-hate relationship with data. And I think data is really important, and it is a great I think people can become overly reliant on data, and if your Garmin says that you're overtrained or undertrained, listening to it the whole time. Um, I very much use data as a tool in my toolbox. It is a factor, but my feeling is the most important thing. So yeah, I have a heart rate max limit that I won't go over. That is yeah, a little bit cautious, but I also have a feeling metrics of okay, well this is too hard. And I think it's where I have a real advantage over not over people, but a real advantage for myself because I have raced other distances. I know how long I can hold a 30-minute effort for. I know how long I can hold an hour effort for using 10K half marathon. Not that my half marathon time's an hour. It's a little bit slower, but it's a rough. I know what that feels like. And if at any point I'm feeling like that, it's okay, well, you need to really back off now. And it's very easy, even on a short climb. And you'll know it from like a Sunday long run. You're running with a group of lads, you get to some climbs and the pace doesn't drop, and then you look at your heart rate, and your heart rate ends up looking like the gradient that you've been running on. Um, and yeah, you spike it. Yeah, I won't run more than 148 beats a minute, and I'll probably for the first half I'll probably push that to 150 if I because I'll take bicarb, and that just gives me a little bit of a buffer, a little bit more of a buffer to play with, especially when adrenaline's high, you're at the start of a race, you've had a long taper and you're feeling good. So yeah, I think yeah, for me, it's important that, yeah, to listen to my body more than anything. So I think that's my biggest gauge is listening to my body.
So
I
this
guess
this one, sorry, Owain.
I was going to say, oh, sorry, no, you go.
This what 148 heart rate is where does that sit relative to like LT1, LT2, and is that number derived from like historical experience at UTMB, or is it just what you've figured out across different from different races?
A mixture of historical data, but also from a VO2 perspective and a carbohydrate utilization perspective. Anything under 150, I'm hardly burning carbs. I think at like 142, I'm burning 48 grams of carbs an hour. And then at 150, I'm burning 60 grams of carbs an hour. And I know people throw out big numbers, fueling on 120 grams of carbs. Like, I don't, for these long races, I don't need to. And I have definitely made the mistake of trying to go in the high carb camp. And I think there are definitely times where high carb is useful in training. It's great because you recover so much better. But for a 20-hour effort, you can't be chugging 120 plus grams of carbs an hour. Don't get me wrong, there'll be sections in this race where the carbohydrate requirement is higher because I'm about to do a big climb. So yeah, for I might take 60 grams of carbs in a 30-minute window. So yes, I'm averaging 120 an hour, but in reality, it's not really because the next hour I'll then end up taking 45 grams of carbs. Um, so yeah, it's from like I guess like a bank account perspective where the faster I go, the more I spend. I get yeah, like driving a car. You've got a long way, you've got a long journey to go. You've got a really efficient engine, and we have a van here. If I when I drive at 70 miles an hour on the UK motorways, I will burn. I might be able to get 400 miles out of the car, but if I drive at 65 miles an hour, I might get another 50 miles. So there is definitely that factor of it might not seem like a lot, but over a 20-hour period, it just adds up and adds up and adds up. So yeah, I found with 148, and that's for me, it's just under 90% of LT1. So my first lactate threshold, and I think that's somewhere I feel really comfortable running. And from a pace perspective on the flat on the treadmill, that's at 6 minute pace, or just outside 6 minute pace. So it's like 6:08 pace, but 6 minutes sounds far sexier. And everyone likes to bump their numbers up as well. So yeah, that's sort of the kind of effort that it feels like a Sunday long run, steady Kev Seawood style effort, is
Kev
how it
Seawood doesn't know
feels.
how to jog. He doesn't know how to go easy.
Well, it's Kev Seawood easy is
No, yeah.
it's all relative.
You mentioned a minute ago using bicarb. What's I guess to start with, I guess what's your sort of like bicarb your protocol for these long races? Because obviously it's clearly changed shorter distance, track events. But and we've heard, we did an interview with Andy Sparks from Morton, and we'd sort of mentioned hearing like people like Killian had used it at these long ultra trail races. But how are you sort of using that in the event? Are you taking it during, or is it just before the start?
Yeah, I think it's there's definitely a camp. Killian's taken it pre and during before. I've only ever taken pre. I think one thing it's like doing a big sodium load. You'll take as sodium bicarb, sodium, there's a lot of sodium in there. For me, it gives me just a little bit of a buffer at the beginning, and I'll take it earlier. I say I only need it probably for 2 hours during the race till things sort of start to calm down and settle down a little bit. So, and I don't need my curve to be right at the top. I'm not hitting LT12 like some of the 800-meter runners are. Like, I just need a little bit of a buffer. And I think for trail running, I don't think that bicarb is the most useful thing in the marathon because you want to have an even heart rate in the marathon. Whereas, yeah, my heart rate graph here will look like your hilly Sunday long run gradient because there will be times where I'm running downhill where my heart rate will go to 115, 120 beats a minute, whereas there'll be some uphills where I'm at 145 to 150. Um, and where I have found bicarb useful is for those little surges, but then also like there might be a couple of, you might have to take 20 hard steps sort of from almost like stairs, like ledges, and that is gonna, you'll increase the amount of muscle fibers used. You are going to create intramuscular, really, it might not, if you measured your lactate immediately afterwards, you probably wouldn't see a spike, but at like a muscular level, there probably is a difference. but also I think what it's doing in your stomach and yeah, what it's doing to the pH in your body, just allowing your body to absorb, to stay a bit more pH neutral, and for your body to actually be able to absorb carbs easier. And I think what a lot of people are finding is using it in training, you end up actually absorbing all of your post recovery, your post session recovery because your stomach's not crazy messed up. But yeah, I'll use for the first half of the first 6 hours where it's in my body and have done fairly extensive testing with Morton. That was 2 by 6 hours on the treadmill back to back days, as you do. Um, and yeah, we very nearly broke the treadmill at Morton headquarters in Gothenburg, just through overheating. It was not happy, and but yeah, that's a story for another day. And yeah, I think it is useful, but yeah, I'll take it more than it. So the recommended is 2 hours before the start, but I'll take it more like 3.5 hours before the start. I get quite thirsty with bicarb, just because there's so much sodium, so I need the time to be able to properly hydrate and almost dilute the sodium a little bit in my body and get it to settle in rather than yeah, I just feel like I've yeah, sprinted a 10K on the start line, which is yeah, which is not ideal.
Do you know from if your blood bicarbonate levels were still elevated 6 hours into your treadmill run, or
Uh, yeah, they were. I had from like base values to then going back to base values for me was 8.5 hours. So it was either far, my body used it significantly slower than we see other athletes using it. Like, I don't know whether that's because like uh my RMR is really low and I'm a yeah, I don't need much fuel to survive. So my metabolism is great, but it's as an endurance athlete should be, I'm not burning through much energy just existing. So yeah, I had one of the longer sort of downward trajectories before reaching baseline and sort of sat at slightly elevated levels. So I peaked at a normal amount of time and then stayed at the peak for the normal, but it was then just the decline that was it was slower than 99%.
yeah.
Which yeah, for me it made scientific sense, but then also makes my life much easier because I don't need to take it close to a race. And yeah, I think by the time you're in the second half of a race and you've already run for 8 hours, being able to produce the muscular power to be able to hit LT2 is, yeah, if you can do that, fair play, because I probably can't. So bicarb almost becomes irrelevant, and actually having a little bit of lactate in your body is not a bad. You might not want to get rid of it because you can then use it as an energy source.
Yeah, I mean, like probably just the intensity of it you're working at as well, combined with not burning through carbohydrates that
Yeah,
quickly. Like if you're not burning through that many carbs when you're not turning over that much lactate, and those blood levels are going to stay high. But
yeah,
that's really
precisely. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah,
So no,
really
I think it's
interesting.
really interesting. I think it definitely serves its. I think it probably is there with what I'm doing. There isn't that much opportunity to collect loads of data in races, especially at the sharp end, um, because I only race 2, 3 times a year. And I guess similar with a lot of studies that are done aren't done on. They might be done on well-trained athletes, but aren't being done on the real pointy end. And I think what was amazing, sort of from a scientific standpoint, was when Nike did Breaking Two with Eliud Kipchoge. Like it did give a real insight into the elite level. Whereas, don't get me wrong, a lot of studies are with amazing athletes, but they're not the guys who are running 2:0 very low, which is the equivalent of running UTMB in sub 20 hours is probably a 2:0. Yeah, the my equivalent of running a 2:03, 2:04, and there just isn't that much testing on that. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. So a lot of it has been trial and error. But yeah, I think I'm in a place where yeah, where I trust what I've practiced and have been lucky enough to work with Morton for years and have sort of come up with a strategy where we think this works really nicely.
I guess another sort of brand you've maybe worked. I assume you've worked with them, but Adidas a couple of years ago at Western States. I think it was still a prototype then, right? The Adidas sort of trail super shoe that you wore. But did you work much with them? And if you did, sort of what sort of things were you doing? Because obviously it's harder to measure, like running economy on trails. It adds an extra element that you can't really measure, doesn't it?
Correct. And I think that then becomes really difficult in a prototyping element because the trail is different from day to day, month to month, year to year. The trail is different. So the vast majority of the data for that project was collected on the treadmill. And I think to a certain extent, running is running. Like there are times, and I think the amazing with trail running is that there is no two steps that are the same. It's not like running on the track where, like, yes, you might break an 800-meter down into first lap, second lap, straights, corners, whatever you're doing, but everything's pretty similar. And it's very easy to measure sort of forces on that. Whereas I think the big thing with that Adidas project was the whole sort of hypothesis of the shoe was the ability to be able to reduce muscle fiber damage on long downhills. So it was finding, and we didn't do the way that we read that was just by measuring the oxygen saturation in quadriceps while doing a long downhill treadmill session. And then a lot of it was then done on feel and post exercise feeling. But yeah, it's so difficult to prototype it here because typically a shoe that's very good for downhill is fairly terrible for uphill because you want very different things. So yeah, trying to create like a Swiss Army knife is yeah is fairly difficult, and I think something that but also because trail running doesn't fall under the IAAF shoe rule, there isn't you can think slightly outside the box if need be, but I think that there is that having a massive stack height on the trails isn't going to give you a benefit at all because yes, you might be faster on the flat road sections, but then when you get to a semi-technical or rooty or rocky area, you've got to have ankles like a gladiator. You definitely don't want to be Hercules with a dodgy Achilles. Going downhill.
Was you mentioned the shoe sort of optimized to reduce muscle damage on the descents, but was there any thought as well that maybe that would be the sort of element of a trail race if you divide it up into uphill, flat, and then downhill? Was there any sort of thought that maybe that would offer also the biggest benefit from a shoe as well? If you're
For a
going
West,
uphill and you're walking, then there's less benefit to be had, isn't there?
100%. And for Western states where there's 8,000 meters downhill, 6,000 meters uphill, you're spending more time going down than you are up. Whereas in a race like UTMB, for a 20-hour UTMB, you're going uphill for 12 and a half, 13 hours. So having a shoe that's more optimized for an uphill and a slower, more stable, because you're spending more time hiking and where your ground contact time is way lower. And if you've got an unstable shoe when you're hiking, well, everyone knows when you put on a super shoe, after you've done your warm up and you're then walking over to the start line, you genuinely feel like Bambi on ice. Imagine doing that for 13 hours. The proprioceptors and your feet are just going to be completely wrecked because you're spending such a long time with such a slow ground contact time. You're just going to be in absolute pieces. Then when you are then able to run, you're already carrying so much fatigue in the small supporting muscles that you can have the biggest glutes in the world. But if the weak point has gone to exhaustion, then you're pissing into the wind anyway.
So you're now an ASICS athlete. What will you wear at UTMB this year? Will that be the same throughout, or will you change the shoes up depending upon the proportion of a race you're in?
Same shoe throughout. I'm working with ASICS on another prototype of more of a Swiss Army knife shoe, and with Asics, they brought out their first sort of long distance trail running shoe 18 months ago, and they basically took a Meta Fuji, not a Meta Fuji, Fuji, oh, not a Fuji,
Better
whatever the
speed.
ratio is, a Meta Speed, and they put a trail grip on the end, on the bottom, and slightly changed the geometry of the shoe. Whereas now, on the second edition of the prototype, they have, yeah, it's basically a split foam, a dual density foam with the brand new foam from the Meta Speed Ray that's right next to your foot and only small, that basically just makes it feel incredible. And then the new foam from the Metaspeed Sky below it, but with a much wider midsole, still with a plate, but the plate, the shape and the size of the plate has changed a little bit. And the uppers, yeah, the uppers different, the lacing system's different, the heel's very different. But yeah, you have to wait and see to look at them. That's
Yeah.
about, I've definitely said far too, I've definitely said more than I'm allowed to say, but I think it'll be
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
as an engineer coming in to fix that problem, you've said already, it's been exceptionally hard to make a shoe that is good for hiking, good cushioning on a downhill. So you don't want something super soft going up. So when you are literally hiking, but also stable. That's a
It's
lot of
really
different
tricky.
directions you need to go in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Um,
really tricky. And I think like you look at the Tour de France and the amount of bike changes that people had for different areas. And like you look at, yeah, Tadej Pogacar when they had the individual uphill time trial, he stripped absolutely everything off the bike. He didn't have handlebar tape. He didn't, there was so much stuff that he took off. And with a shoe, like you can't really do that. But then at the end of the day, you've still got to run for 20 hours. So is the all singing, all dancing, most scientific shoe, if it's not comfortable, you're not going to be able to use any of the amazing technology in it. So yeah, comfort has got to be first. And like you see, you compare it to track spikes, like how within a minute of people finishing a track race, they're taking off their shoes because they put them on so tight and they're so uncomfortable. You can get through it for 2 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you're running. But then as soon as you're done, they're coming off. Whereas for this, like, yeah, you've got 20 hours in a pair of shoes. You need to be really comfortable. So yeah, comfort is definitely overlooked, but I think is a hugely, hugely important metric coming to this.
100%. Talking more about the training then in preparation for something like UTMB, what would be like a last like key performance indicator session going into a race and you nail that and you go, I'm ready to go, I'm fit, I'm ready to take on the best.
I think it's probably doing like the real specificity, the long back-to-back runs. Like I genuinely don't think there is one session where you think, oh, I've done this because the course is so different. Like just because you're good on the uphills doesn't mean you're going to be good on the downhills. It doesn't mean you're going to be good on the flats. And it'd be very rare in a session where I do a mixture of uphill, flat, and downhill work. So like yesterday, for example, I did 3 by 20 minutes at sort of just over race pace, sort of at a 154 average heart rate, all uphill, and I felt really strong and I was climbing really well. So that's a great indicator that yeah, you're able to do that at a higher effort for an hour's worth of work. But yeah, I'd say sort of the really key sessions are probably I'll do yeah, like 7 hours on day one and then 6 hours on day two. And day one's probably got a few efforts in above race pace, and then day two is at race pace or at race effort, race feel. And I think we've done it in two different ways. One where you don't look at any data and you just run to feel of what you think race pace is. Then you look at it afterwards and say, okay, well, actually that's not your race pace because your heart rate was too high. Or you become sort of not a slave to the data, but you're far more aware of the data and you say, right, I'm capping heart rate at 148. Let's run as hard as I can, but keeping heart rate under 148 and see what happens. And typically what I would do is on day one is do that system looking at the data, and then day two run more on feel. And you very quickly learn, yeah, during a run, I could probably tell you within two or three beats what my heart rate is, because you just get so tuned in and so zoned into to how you're feeling. But yeah, I guess it's one of those races that I don't necessarily want to feel. I don't want to feel amazing for the first 12 hours. Because if I feel amazing for the first 12 hours, I'll go too hard and I'll probably feel fairly horrendous for the last eight. But if I can feel, yeah, B plus, A minus maybe for the first 10 hours, and then yeah, have a period where I start to feel better would be great. So yeah, definitely not one key session. And I think it's, yeah, an accumulation of fatigue where, yeah, the last 3 weeks have all been over 20. I think I did 28, 26 and a half, 29 hours of running in those weeks, which is, yeah, 100 and give or take 140 miles with, well, I work in K, it's like 210K with 15,000 meters of climbing each week, which is big. But you compare that to similar mileage to what Phil Sessman's running for the marathon, but taking more than twice as long, because my average pace here is I'm outside 10 minutes a mile for most runs, because yeah, as you can see from behind me, it's not flat. Um,
You're like this, Tom, then. Like, for context, like last week I did 192k, 13 hours, 46 minutes, 560 meters of climbing,
yeah,
560. So you're doing
if I if I
like,
go on to
yeah.
if I go on to mine now, so peak week, if it loads,
I'm not even going to open my Strava. I don't want any part of this competition.
yeah, so 200 213 kilometers, 26 and a half hours, 14 and a half thousand meters of climbing.
Yeah, it's an exceptional amount of climbing. So when you're
Yeah,
structuring your training, then I mean, like we've talked a bit about like the demands of an ultra before, and you've said that you obviously still need to be fit. So you can't ignore like that classical model of good VO2 max, good thresholds, good economy. But then you've got this whole durability and conditioning equation as well. How does how does that fit into your like yearly planning in terms of like now I'm working on just getting fit, getting flat fit, getting good speed and aerobic capacity and all that, and then when does it switch to being more mountain focused, assuming that's how you go about it?
yeah, I guess sort of for the last couple of years have been a bit different. Like running World Cross last year, it was all about I sort of wanted to build my relative speed, my VO2 max in the beginning of the year, and then transition that. And there was actually a fairly short transition then onto the trails, um, which was uh, yeah, which I didn't think really worked because I needed a little bit more time to build that durability. But this year, I think what we've done and the way that it was structured was focusing on a similar sort of thing about increasing, maybe not VO2 max, but more sort of from doing lots of thresholdy Norwegian style training in the first part of the year. And that was, yeah, running at 530s on the flat, and but then also doing a similar, taking the heart rate that I was running at 530s, then using that on an incline treadmill to get the same aerobic effect, but in a with a little bit more specificity. And then the real specific for from a muscular conditioning specific standpoint has been a 16-week block leading into the race that's been really focused on, yeah, really focused on the mountains and, yeah, the ability to be a bit more resistant to fatigue, which I think is it's a really difficult metric to measure. Almost an impossible metric to measure. And I think you go on feel and recovery, and it's where like subjective data becomes more important than anything else. Um, and yeah, and I think with that, it kind of just allows you to get the training that you need to, because here there is a lot of very runnable sections. Like there is a from yeah like 120k in, you've then got a downhill 23 kilometers, that you can, if you were fresh, you would 6 minute pace. Um, you're obviously not going to be doing that, but if you can 7 minute pace, there's not many people who can run really comfortably at 7 minute pace. Um, so yeah, I think, and then yeah, I guess that's from sort of like a macro periodization standpoint. The year is definitely split into different phases, but then from like a micro perspective, from week in and week out, typically I then end up doing my maybe not my key sessions, but my um yeah, the thresholdy type stuff the day after or 2 days after I've done a hard long run with downhill efforts. In the UK, there are very few runs that I'll do, or actually even in the mountains here, very few runs that I'll do that will just be a single pace. A lot of them will be either some uphill efforts or some downhill efforts just to try and yeah, give yourself a little bit of a stimulus. So you're used to working you're used to working pretty hard. Again, I think if you look at it from like a cross country perspective, it's the way that I think they now don't do it anymore, which is a real shame. But like when cross used to be at Milton Keynes, and you used to have like the really short, sharp climbs into a plateau, steep downhill, and then flat. Typically, what people do in any cross country, or take Parliament Hill as well, you've got a hard climb up into a flat and a downhill, and everyone sort of works really hard on the uphill, but then just chills out on the downhill and tries to recover. So yeah, when I raced Parliament Hill last year, I sort of chilled a little bit on the climbs, let someone else lead the climbs, but then went hard in the flats, the downhills. That then really opened up the race and definitely changed the dynamic. And so yeah, I think from like a micro periodization standpoint, like try and batter the legs, because what we're trying to do at the end of the day is just train for the demands of the event. And you've got to be able to, like, because we have worked out that there's significantly more climbing, you spend far more time climbing. If I can get 1 or 2% better at climbing, especially under fatigue, yeah, I'd much rather be 1% better of 13 hours rather than 1% better of 7 hours. And it's just picking and choosing where you can try and get that. And yeah, you guys know running uphill after you're doing a Sunday long run. If you've run downhill quick, then trying to run uphill, your legs are just like jelly. Um, so yeah, trying to make that feel not less miserable because it's always miserable, but just trying to be able to convert that a little bit better into what you're doing, I guess.
I think that one of the worst parts of a trail race is where you spend 5-10 minutes going downhill, and then there's just a random little climb, and you're just like my legs just don't work, like they've just
Yeah,
stopped working.
it's
Yeah,
re
it's a really
it's
odd.
really it's really really tricky. And that I really struggle with it, and everyone really struggles with it, which is why I think actually training in the UK is brilliant, because we've not got these massive alpine climbs that last for an hour. Like I do a lot of my training in the Peak District where I'm going up for 20 minutes, down for 10 minutes, not doing any flat, and you're just constantly battering your legs downhill, then climbing, then battering, then climbing. And I think from like a neuromuscular standpoint, you're making those adaptations quicker than you do here. And I think it's why it works really well doing the majority of a training blocks of that under the water iceberg stuff in the UK, and then coming out here for that specificity, because you've already got the fitness. You just need that little bit of specificity just to give you that nudge forward to yeah, that I guess becomes a marginal gain. Um, but yeah.
I guess we're training in the UK, like you say, there is benefits, but then I guess with the sort of two biggest ultras, you've got Western states where there is an altitude element, but there's mainly the heat. I guess you would say that's the main sort of additional element, and then UTMB, yeah, there is an altitude element as well. Are you doing anything back in the UK to sort of specifically prepare for those, or try and use them as an adaptation?
Yeah, definitely working. We live in Loughborough, and so I have used Loughborough facilities for a while. But then actually this year, I then changed and started going to Leeds Beckett instead, and one of their nutritionists who I'm now working with, a guy called Paul Booth, who has been absolutely brilliant. And yeah, the facilities at Leeds have been brilliant and have done testing in the heat, have done testing at altitude, and with the guys there, have put together a protocol while I'm out here, one for the heat, but then also for the altitude. So in a typical week, I've had goals and targets of running a certain amount of time above a certain elevation. Um, I'll release all of this stuff post race. Not that it'll make any difference now for anyone, but yeah, basically having targets of right, okay, this week one out here, I want you to spend 6, 7 hours above 2,500 meters. And then week two, we want you to spend 10 hours above that. And then with the heats, typically I find from a stress perspective, I think running and training in the heat is really tough. So for this block, we focused way more on passive heat, certainly in the beginning stages. So yeah, hot water immersion post exercise is the fancy way of saying having a bath after training. And we found, yeah, that to be the most effective way in making heat adaptations. We measured that predominantly through sweat rate, but then also on feel. Um, and yeah, that will carry on until the race. And actually, it's been really hot here, and today is literally the first day that we've had clouds in the sky, and it's significantly cooler now. But even if the race is looking a bit cooler, I will keep the heat prep in right up until the last point, because I think from a blood plasma standpoint, you are getting you are getting really good gains from a performance benefit, and it's people are saying that yeah, heat is the poor man's altitude, and I agree to it. I agree to that to a certain standpoint, but except being tired, there is very little negatives to being heat prepped. Whereas with altitude, as a professional athlete, I still don't know when my perfect window to race is coming down from altitude, and especially in a race that then goes to altitude, or because all of the studies have been done for racing at sea level. Like if I was doing a marathon, I'd go to a big camp in Font, and then I'd either drop down 2 days before and take the risk of getting sick on the flight, or 2 weeks before, and that's your race window. But yeah, here you need to be in Chamonix for the week because there's media commitments to do. So you can't drop in 2 days before because you need to be here for longer. And so yeah, it's a really tricky one. So yeah, we've definitely prioritized heat over altitude here, and I guess of the live low, train high, but we're living at 1,200 meters here, which isn't high, but it's the average. The average height of the race is 1,800 meters, which I'm spending, yeah, probably on average 3 hours a day and then going higher. So yeah, ticking those boxes. But from the testing we did in Leeds, like my LT1 hardly changed at sea level compared to 2,300 meters. Um, so yeah, from a relative low intensity standpoint, for me, there isn't that much more of a, it's not that much more taxing on my body. But then it would be a different question if you were then trying to push to LT2 and thinking, oh, actually, yeah, I'm at nearly 3,000 meters. I'm going to run a half marathon pace for a bit because I think that's a great idea. And very quickly it turns out not to be a great idea.
I guess so. You've been in Chamonix the last couple of weeks, is that right? For your final block, and I
Yeah,
saw that
5 weeks.
last 5 weeks. Okay, so you had a nice time to get used to the environment. I saw you've been doing some nighttime running as well. Two a.m. was it? I saw that Sophie, your wife, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, um, professional triathlete. She was a bit concerned about you running out in the trails at that time of the morning.
Yes, I think it's always a tricky one. Night running is a completely different sport to running in the day. Like everything feels like you're going so much faster, even though you're going so much slower. And a lot of the race at UTMB is at night, so you need to train for those specifics. It would be like if you were preparing for the Olympic 1,500 meter and you were trying to go for a medal, and you knew that the final was going to be at 8 p.m., you would do some sessions at 8 p.m. You would get ready, you would practice that specificity because yeah, I'm way more of a morning person. I do all of my runs typically starting at, I say, 9 o'clock, probably more like 10 a.m. Nice leisurely morning. And yeah, I think it's really important to be able to practice running at night. And one really interesting thing that we found is running at night on my own, my heart rate was between like 5 and 8 beats a minute higher for the same pace and for the same effort, purely from an innate human feeling that you're a bit scared in the dark. So it was really interesting coming up with a really good protocol to be able to, yeah, to be way more comfortable at night and way more comfortable running at the night. So you're not scared. You don't have that fight or flight mode that you hear something, your heart rate can, yeah, just shoot up. So yeah, it's been really interesting running at the night, and it's something that, yeah, something that I practiced a lot over winter in the UK, and it's really easy running at night in the UK in the winter because it's dark at 3 o'clock. Um, so yeah, it's something that we've practiced a lot and put a lot of effort in, and yeah, so sort of not panics, but I've had some great experiences in the mountains and some not so great experiences in the mountains. So yeah,
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 yeah.
you always worry. So yeah, Find My Friends is always turned on, and as many updates as I can possibly send always go down well. So yeah.
So are you using like caffeine throughout the night or throughout the race? Are you periodizing that to try and make yourself more alert? Because again, the other element to it is you are racing for 20 hours and it starts at in the evening, right?
Yeah, it starts at you start at 6, now it starts at 5:45 p.m.
So you're going to be ending up being awake for a long, long period of time. How do you go about just the sleep management of it?
The best preparation, having a baby. I think that's significantly harder than yeah, than running through the night. So yeah, I will use caffeine and use quite a lot of caffeine, but at really strategic points during the race. Um, I feel, and with a fueling strategy, as soon as you start taking something, you need to carry on taking it. You can't back off. So I will, the start for caffeine ingestion is fairly dependent on how I'm feeling. If I go through a really tired patch, that's when I'll start taking caffeine, and then the protocol then basically kicks in, and it's not quite as simple as 100 milligrams an hour, but it's not far off 100 milligrams an hour as an average. And I found that that's yeah, I'm a I drink coffee a couple of times a day, so I I use caffeine from a day-to-day training and lifestyle perspective. But then also, I think what I find really useful from a brain management standpoint is ketones. Um, I have found, do I think that they help performance massively? Kind of on the fence. I've had some races where I've performed really well with them. I've also had lots of races where I've performed really well without them. But I think from a mental cognitive standpoint, there is definitely a lot of research into your brain is incredibly good at using ketones, and would actually favor using ketones over carbohydrate. I almost think it's like you're convincing, whereas with caffeine, you're convincing your body you've got energy, whereas with ketones, you're fueling your brain quite a lot to be able to make those right decisions, both in the long term, whether that's a pacing or a heart rate perspective, or in the short term of, okay, where am I putting my feet while I'm going down this hill while I'm really tired and it's 4 a.m. and we've still got an hour till the sun rises. It's been raining for the last 2 hours and I've not slept for a day. Um, and I think especially like ketones combined with carbohydrate is yeah, definitely where things are going. So yeah, a really mixed fueling strategy that gets more and more, it starts relaxed and chilled and gets more and more aggressive as the race goes on. And yeah, using caffeine, using ketones, yeah, caffeine, ketones, and carbs are yeah key.
Yeah, I mean that's an enormous amount of caffeine, like 100 milligrams an hour. When you normally, you look at textbook recommendations of 3 to 6 milligrams per kilo of body weight, probably taken once like an hour before. And I
Yeah,
suppose it's a completely different situation. Like you said, research is not normally focused on things that are so long, and especially in elite performers like yourself.
yeah.
But I guess like you've tried and tested this multiple times in training and in racing, and it's working for you.
Yeah, I think it works well, and yeah, caffeine half-life, let's say it's 6 hours, give or take. That yeah, after if you have 600 milligrams in your body and you're taking 100 milligrams an hour, yes, it then only slowly in increments goes up and up and up because you're getting rid of half of one of the hundreds. If that was the easy way of looking at it. So yes, it is high and it is aggressive. But yeah, I think from a physical from a purely physical standpoint, like I feel good on it. My stomach doesn't get bad on it. But I think with any plan, like these plans have got to be adaptable and they've got to be changeable. That if things do start going wrong, you've got the cognitive awareness to be able to sort of pump the brakes and be like, okay, well, what am I doing that's not working or making me feel like this? Okay, let's change that. And then what then does that mean? And what then does that look like? Okay, let's stop taking caffeine. What's the impact of that going to be? Okay, you might be a bit more tired. Okay, well, what strategies can we put in place to feel a little bit better? Is that then changing the podcast or changing the music that you're listening to something faster and more energetic to just try and get your adrenaline going a little bit? Is it as simple as shining your torchlight in your eyes to make your pupils dilate and then just to sort of really shock your body, be like, whoa, what's going on? So there are lots of different strategies to pick up that aren't just purely the things that you're putting in. There's more of like a holistic approach that definitely plays its part in these longer races, and something that I've experimented and delved more into in the last couple of years rather than just looking at a pure number standpoint.
No, really interesting. In terms of your profile, I mean, you've obviously come at ultra racing from more the speed side in terms of you've got fantastic times over shorter distances, and world cross, European cross country champs. You've been multiple times. I how much are you looking at other athletes that you're competing against and looking at their strengths and weaknesses and thinking how can I go about beating your competitors versus just getting on with your own plan and sort of ignoring everybody else?
I think had you asked me a year ago, I'd say I'd do a lot of like competitor analysis and looking at what other people are doing. Whereas, this year we've I guess taken a bit of a different approach and being like, let's just get as good as you possibly can get. And if that's good enough, so you almost treat it more like a time trial rather than a race, and you just do your thing because it's very easy to get carried away with other people because there'll be some people who want to go out, get a 20-minute lead, and then just slowly give time back as the race goes on. That strategy for me doesn't work. I come through much quicker in the second half because I've got that leg speed and hopefully still that leg turnover. Um, so I think you've got to be aware of people and what they're doing, but with these races, like anything can happen. Take last year, out of the top 20 ranked men, 17 dropped out, including myself. So like it was an absolute car crash for so many people. And is that because everyone was following other people's race plans? So whereas this year, very much going in with a focus of, okay, this is my plan. This is what I'm going to do. This is my focus, kind of ignore everyone else and be aware of, okay, well there might be people somewhere, but like I think I guess it's like for me the race doesn't really start till, like with a marathon people say the race starts at 20 miles. I think here the race starts at 100 kilometers when you still got 70k to go, but the race starts, like before is just foreplay, um which you've got to get through in order to get to the race part. It doesn't matter if you're in the lead. Take Parliament Hill. It doesn't matter if you're on the lead at the top of the first climb. if you're at the lead at the top of the first climb, you're probably not winning the race. Um, so yeah, being far more tactical and tactful, and yeah, if the goal is, yeah, the goal for me is to run my best possible race, and I believe that if I can execute my race, I'm able to run a certain time that I think is capable of winning. But if you're, yeah, if I'm racing against someone who's going to go and run, who's physically capable of running 10 minutes quicker and they execute their perfect race, fair play. And I guess like it's like me going and racing European cross country champs or world cross. Like I'm not, yeah, if I go race world cross, like I'm not beating Kip Limo. And I'm absolutely fine with that. There's some people are better than other people, and you might have your day, you might not have your day, but you're there doing your very best, picking up the pieces, and yeah, focusing on yourself. And it's such a long race. 20 hours to follow someone else's plan is really tricky. And even yeah, going through the first half in 10 minutes quicker than you should, that might not sound like a lot. If you go through 10 minutes too quick, you'll do the second half 20, yeah, minimum of 20 minutes slower. So yeah, you've lost time. And like yes, I like racing at the front, but sometimes in these races it pays to come from behind and yeah, be the hunter rather than the hunted. Yeah.
Mm. No, it's yeah, it's so complicated, and I guess at some point the plan just goes completely out the window, and it's just about surviving, even for those who are most prepared.
100%. And like I have a pacing plan that takes me to 120 kilometers, but then the last 50K, the last just over a marathon, I have no plan whatsoever. It's okay, well, let's see what you can do. Let's can we just can we hold where we are? Do we have to back off a little bit? Can we pick things up? Because yeah, in 50K you can take when yeah, and when I had a good race here in 2022, in the last 9 kilometers, I put an hour into the person who I just overtook. So you can lose or gain that much time in 9 kilometers. Um, so yeah, being when you slow like that, you slow like that. And it yeah becomes yeah complete carnage.
So you've finished UTMB. How bad do you feel afterwards? The next day, what
Yeah,
sort of whole state are
horrendous.
you in?
Typically, I don't sleep very well. Yeah, typically I don't sleep very well. That night afterwards. Sorry. Yeah, typically I don't sleep that well afterwards, probably because so much caffeine and yeah, so much caffeine and sugar in your body that, and if you've had a good race, you're on top of the world. So yeah, you typically don't sleep very well, so you end up having 2 nights of not great sleep. Um, and then yeah, from there, yeah, you end up not sleeping very well. So yeah, normally the day after you're tired, you almost feel like your worst hangover ever and muscularly sore as well. But then, yeah, probably it's the second and third day afterwards where you feel most muscularly sore and everything sore. Even like my triceps will be sore and my neck will be sore. Um, yeah, everything just ends up feeling
Pretty bad.
miserable.
Pretty
As well
bad.
as like you obviously your legs are sore and that's there's no point even mentioning that because that's obvious. But yeah, like
Yeah.
even from just wearing a pack, like your ribs feel really sore and constricted, and yeah, everything sore. Neck will be sore, um, shoulders, triceps, everything. Just you're carrying so much tension. Yeah, it's pretty miserable and makes you definitely question why on earth you're doing it to yourself. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So
it's the life.
with yeah, so you've won Western States, which is arguably one of the other pinnacle of ultra trail running, with the second one obviously being UTMB. What would it mean to you to win UTMB?
Yeah, I think it's something I've thought about a little bit. Like, I think there are very few people who have on the male, on the men and the women's side who have won both. And I think for me, it would be as trail running continues to grow as a sport, it's showing people what's possible and what you can be capable of with a really meticulous planning. I think sort of more than anything, like yes, I obviously want to win, and that's a huge driving factor. But I genuinely just want to have my best race. Um, and yeah, being a new father, like I want to set the example that you might, yeah, you might not have the perfect conditions, you might not live in the perfect place or have the perfect build up, but actually, if you put your mind to something, like anything, maybe not anything is possible, but you're able to give your very best. And yeah, I train so that I'm able to be the best version of myself. And yeah, having won big races, like I think that I am one of the best at this. And but with a 20-hour race, anything can happen. So yeah, I guess for me, the main goal is getting to the finish line. And I believe that if I'm able to get to the finish line, I'm able to get to the finish line in a really good time. Um, if that's good enough to win, then great. But if it's not good enough to win, then great. All I can do is my best. It's similar to, yeah, similar to 99% of European marathon runners. Like you go to London and there's almost a race within a race. Um, and yeah, if I was running London, I'm never going to run 202, 204. But your physiological capability is running 208, then amazing, run 208. And that's a win for you. So for me, yeah, I want to run like 19 hours 45-ish here, which I think in most years is good enough to be at the top of the podium. But if there's guys who are capable of running quicker, then fair play. So yeah, winning would be amazing. But yeah, for me, the sense of achievement and showing what I'm capable of doing in different environments is, yeah, more important.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a really healthy relationship to have with the sport, and I think yeah, a really good way of looking at it. And certainly how I look at WOW, it's just I want to get as most as I can out of myself, and where that gets me to, that sort of is what it is.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's such an exciting time to be in mountain running, trail running, ultra running. Like, it just seems to be growing at a rate of knots. So, what do you want to tick off over the rest of your career? Like you've can we see you coming back and doing some road marathons, as well as what else is in your bucket list? Could we get see you on like something like a Comrades or like 100K like flat road race?
Yeah, definitely. I think depending on how this year goes, sort of slightly dictates and determines what I do next year. And we'll definitely need a, I think we've come to UTMB. Yeah, this will be the fourth year in a row. So whether I'll come back next year or not, or go back to the US or race something a little bit different. I will probably try and qualify for Eurocross this year, and sort of just try and jump straight back into some shorter stuff, which would be fun. But yeah, definitely, I've definitely got my eye on coming onto the roads to run a marathon. I think things have changed so much in the last few years, and I think almost like the Roger Bannister effect, that people are capable of running this quick with the right training and the right build up. You're capable of doing certain things. And yeah, I'm very close with Alex Yee, and having seen his London build and seeing his training now. I'm not sure if he's announced exactly what he's doing yet, but yeah, there are definitely some crossovers there, which would be nice to get some training in with him. And yeah, I think, yeah, the road marathon definitely interests me. Comrades really interests me. But yeah, I will worry about these things in
Mhm.
2 weeks' time.
Yeah, yeah, something else to get out of the way first, just for simple
Yeah,
matter of
precisely.
100 miles in the mountains. Tom, thank you
Precisely.
so much for giving up your time. Best of luck for for the race. I'll be dot watching, following it along, and yeah, I'm sure the listeners will really have, loved hearing from you. So thank you so much for your time.
Perfect. No, Dan, thanks very much. And yeah, keep up the good work and look forward to seeing you soon.
Cheers.